if you are trying to actively hire illegal immigrants, if you think that's best, if you are trying to game the system, if you are trying to help someone break U.S. federal immigration law, I think if we're going to have a true crackdown on illegal immigration in this country, it has to involve everybody who's participating in it. And I think you've raised a good point with this topic. And so employers and anyone else who's part of this pipeline, I think they ought to be put on notice. You got to play by the rule. Everybody has to play by the rules.
I don't want to hear that they're doing work that no one else will do. Talk to guys in the building trades, plumbers, contractors,
picking strawberries.
These building trades guys are being hurt.
I can't
by
wait.
labor that shouldn't be here.
I can't wait until American women can't get blueberries for their smoothies. I cannot wait until there is a full crackdown on all small businesses, as if that's going to be the solution to the immigration problem. It is just going to put immigration-related issues further into the darker corners. We're not going to see them. It's just going to become even harder to solve the problem. It doesn't make sense to punish individuals and people when there is a broken system.
I mean, look, I think if you came here illegally and you did it, you broke the law, you have to understand it's a new day in America. And number two, I still think the case for total economic collapse, if we have some deportation, is totally overstated. I mean, it's obvious the priority is violent criminals and the second priority is people with existing deportation orders. I think that's the vast majority of what's going to go on, for the next couple of years. And I don't think that's going to have any impact on the economy at all.
But I wonder.
I agree with Scott. And to an extent, I understand where this lady is coming from, although the blueberries, I mean, it's a moronic statement, to be honest with you. It really is. These people always go to who's going to do the menial jobs, and I'll discuss that at the end of this video. Let's keep going.
Are career prosecutors who have been at the Department of Justice during the Biden administration, during the last Trump administration, and even prior. The only thing that's different this time is that they were asked to join a case against the president. There's no suggestion that they did anything wrong other than abide by their duties, which is examining the case based on the facts, the evidence, and the law, and making independent judgments, which the Department of Justice is supposed to do in proceeding forward.
Yeah, so their crime here, according to the Trump Justice Department now, is that they said yes when their superiors asked them to take a case. I mean, what does that do to people who are coming up in the ranks at DOJ, who are being every day asked to take on all kinds of controversial cases, public corruption cases, all kinds of different cases?
Well, it's certainly going to scare prosecutors, and that's not what we want to do, right? We want prosecutors to have independent judgment, to be able to think constructively, analyze the law, the facts, the evidence, like I had mentioned, and not be scared of political retribution. Political calculation should never come in to a prosecutor's mind when they're exercising their discretion.
Yeah, Governor, what do you think about all this?
Well, I think the nation's on a slippery slope. Once you start politicizing the judiciary and law enforcement, you begin to have this escalation of it. And you saw it under the Biden administration with various acts that they took in terms of their pardons. And some of the charges against Donald Trump, I think, were not well-founded, not well thought out from a prosecutorial perspective. And now you have Trump raising the ante.
What about the one that the Justice Department was handling involving the January 6 cases?
Yeah, I did read the Fisher case.
His January 6 case.
Yeah, the U.S. Supreme Court had a case last year in 2024. It's the Fisher case. And they said that a number of the DOJ defendants were mischarged. They weren't properly charged. That is not right, but it's also not reason.
That has to do with I guess, seditious conspiracy charges?
No, the obstruction of justice.
Obstruction of justice, I'm sorry.
Obstruction of justice charges.
So one element of the broader January 6th
Right.
case.
So in those cases, not all the J6ers, but in those cases, the Department of Justice was deemed to have acted inappropriately. That does not justify firing career prosecutors and beginning to undermine our traditions and norms in terms of justice in America.
One of the things I think about is a lot of times charges are brought because the attorney, prosecutor, believes they have standing, and then you aren't found guilty of them, and that is how it's usually adjudicated in the court of law. Like every charge you charge isn't always found guilty. I think that the timing of the release of these prosecutors was executed with almost perfection by Donald Trump because it was bookend on the Friday night of also terminating the Solicitor Generals. And I think there is a story this administration is trying to paint. Now, I don't think the termination of the prosecutors is right, but the termination of the Inspector General, is not, he didn't follow the law. And to the American people, sometimes it's so much that they don't digest it all and they can't make one, what is different from one and the other. And they just say like, okay, maybe he's just getting rid of people in a form of retribution. And I think that that is a slippery slope. And they did it quite well because you have to then sometimes pick, well, what thing are you going to talk about in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as Ashley pointed out, the other Ashley, that this is unprecedented on the prosecutor side, but also, as you pointed out, the inspector generals on Capitol Hill, Republicans are the ones saying that Trump needs to come tell them what's going on. Lisa Murkowski says this kind of summary dismissal of everybody has raised concerns. Chuck Grassley said there may be a good reason why they were fired, but we need to know, and I'd like further explanation from Trump. Collins says, I don't understand why one would fire individuals whose mission is to root out waste, fraud, and abuse, which is a very good question. Why fire the people whose job it is to look inward at the department and figure out what went wrong?
Yeah, I think the IG thing is separate from in my mind, it's two separate issues. Specifically on the prosecutors, I actually think it's pretty reasonable for the president, who was just elected, to not want people in his government that he runs who were just most recently trying to put him in jail. I mean, it seems like common sense to me that it wouldn't be right to force the president to run a government, at least which in part has been recently trying to jail him. I grant you that nothing wrong may have happened, that they may have done everything correctly, but still, he got elected. This is a government of the people that elects the president. It's not a government of the career prosecutors. And so I think for now, it's fine that they're not in the government. When he's not the president, and if they want to come back, I'm not sure I would have a problem with that. But I do think it's reasonable for the president to believe that the entire executive branch is, rowing in the direction that he sets as the duly elected president.
I just think that forgets the point that the Department of Justice and the attorneys in the department should act free from any political influence or will.
But it's a department of the executive branch. The president appoints the attorney general. It works for the president,
But
does
the
it not?
Department of Justice does not work for the president.
Yes,
the
it does.
Department of Justice works for the American people.
No, it works for the executive branch.
Department
It's
of
in the
Justice,
Constitution. It exists in the executive branch.
The lawyers of the Justice Department work for the American people.
You're acting like it's an independent branch of government. It's in the executive branch, run by the president.
I mean,
you don't think there should
but
be a
the lawyers
firewall?
of the Justice Department work for the American people, not for the president of the United States, not the person in the office.
So you don't
They
think
work for the
anyone
office,
you
not
don't think
person
anyone in the
office.
executive branch is bound to the head of the executive branch?
No, here's the difference. Here's the difference, though. I think this is very critical. You have political appointees who serve at the pleasure of the president. They can be fired whenever, for whatever reason. The president doesn't even need to say why. These are career prosecutors.
So?
These are career inspector generals. There's actually a law that says that you cannot fire them without cause.
Can we revoke this lady's citizenship or green card? I know she's not from or born in this nation, but she needs to go. She needs to take a civics class because it's obvious she doesn't know what the heck she's talking about. This is ridiculous.
Then if the former Department of Justice under Joe Biden actually acted under his, then there was nothing wrong with it. If everything, by your logic, if you apply it to the last administration, which I don't think is the case, then if Joe Biden wanted to go after Donald Trump because he wanted to go, the Attorney General should be able to do it, and there was no.
They did go after Donald Trump because
No,
Joe Biden didn't want to do it.
He had a special prosecutor. He had
I'm sorry to stop it, but if it wasn't Joe Biden that wanted it, it had to be people in his cabinet, people a part of his administration wanted this to happen. It wouldn't have happened if they didn't want it.
But at the order
But then
of the
why is it
president.
wrong? Then why is it like?
Hold on, Scott. You just said something that's not correct.
What?
You tried to slip it in there. You said at the order of the president. That is completely
He did not.
false.
He did not appoint the prosecutor.
It is completely false that Joe Biden ordered the creation of someone to investigate Donald Trump. That did not happen.
What do you? I mean,
you just said that, and that didn't happen.
They had a
So,
special
and
they had a
I think
special
actually
prosecutor under the
Ashley's-
Biden administration
Okay,
that
you just
went
said
after Donald Trump. They
under
did
the
not.
order of the president.
All
Did
these
Joe
things are
Biden-
in the executive branch.
I get
this is
that.
and this is my argument.
I get the
it is
Schoolhouse
an
Rock part
executive
of it,
branch,
Scott,
and the president's at the top of
But you
it.
have no evidence that Joe Biden ordered the investigation.
He said on the record
of-
multiple times that
He
Donald
did
Trump
not-
should have been thrown in
Okay,
jail, and
so
said that Merrick
if you
Garland failed
think-
by not doing
If
it.
Ashley's point is correct, that you think that it's just fine.
Scott's absolutely right. These people will defend their daddy to the death. These people are ridiculous, man.
For the president of the United States to order whatever investigation he wants, what's wrong with that?
I think I am making a simple personnel argument.
what's wrong
the
with
Justice
it? No,
Department
no.
exists in the
Hold on.
executive branch,
Hold on.
and it exists under the president.
Well,
It is not an
if it is-
independent agency.
If that is the case, then what would be wrong with Joe Biden? If that's the case, what would be wrong with Joe Biden saying, I'm going to order the Justice Department to go after my political enemies? Wouldn't there be nothing wrong with that, by your logic?
Well, I don't think that there's any problem with the president as the head of the executive branch telling the Justice Department, I think things need to be investigated
That
here.
is quite.
But it's up to
that is quite-
but it's
I
up
will
to
say
them.
that-
It's up to them to decide whether laws were
That
broken.
is quite an extraordinary acknowledgement after 4 years of
agree.
saying the Justice Department has been wrongly weaponized against Republicans. You are now saying it's okay.
I'm not
for
saying
that
it
to
should be
happen.
weaponized, but I'm not. But it
the-
doesn't exist separate from the president. It does not.
I
We have
mean,
no evidence that Biden ordered it, but Biden's Justice Department did in fact go after Donald Trump. In fact,
course.
for example, when
That's true.
Donald Trump had
Biden's Justice
classified
Department
documents, he gets
also-
prosecuted.
but
When
Biden's-
Biden has them in his garage, he
But
gets
Governor,
written off as an old guy.
Biden's Justice Department also went after his son.
Yep.
His Justice Department also created a special counsel that did investigate his use of classified documents and released a scathing report that you could argue hurt him politically in an election year. So
But this
you
is
have
all
to, you
changing.
have to
Now,
put all
Trump
the, you have
ran.
to put all the cards on
Trump
the table,
ran.
not just the ones that
it
you
was
like.
it was hiding in plain sight. Trump ran on the notion that I'm going to get the folks who are trying to get me.
Yeah.
And those
You
folks,
know-
wait, those folks work for the American people at the Department of Justice, and the American people heard Donald Trump, and they voted him into office.
That is true. He did say, Donald Trump was very clear that he was going to get into the Oval Office and work on his enemies list. He is, in fact, working on his enemies list. What he is doing with the inspector generals, with the prosecutors, and with everything else that he's doing, he
campaigned
is
on it.
methodically going down his enemies. But here's the problem. He did campaign on it, and his MAGA supporters loved it.
And he got
but
elected.
the people who voted for him, who are not his MAGA supporters, voted for him because Donald Trump promised to bring down the cost of groceries, gas, and rent. And everything that he has done since he got elected
and more.
does absolutely nothing to
And
bring
we
down
were
the cost
told
of
when we
groceries,
said
gas, and rent.
retribution was going to
And
be
more.
the first thing he did on day one.
This is
we
not
were
retribution.
Told,
That's right.
We
is-
were told
Oh, yes.
we were crazy.
This is not-
Actually,
this is not
you
retribution.
prosecuted a lot of these January 6th. Some I shouldn't say. I shouldn't exaggerate. You prosecuted January 6th cases.
A lot, yes.
Donald Trump just pardoned everybody, basically. When you saw that, you resigned. Why?
I think I described this before as sort of a guttural reaction. I view this crime, having watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of video of it, as an attack not only on the Capitol building as an institution, the Capitol police officers, but also on our democracy. This was January 6th. These people weren't there as a coincidence. That's the day that our Congress certifies the Electoral College vote. They attacked the Capitol on that day to stop the peaceful transition of power. And that is really what's the heart of our democracy. That's what makes us different than a lot of other countries. And so for a president to come into office and immediately absolve all crimes and all criminality and all guilt or anything and everything, it's insulting to the American people. It's insulting to the police officers who risked their lives, who gave their lives. And you know, the Department of Justice is a prestigious institution. The people who work there are proud to do so. And I sort of stopped feeling that at some point.
Are you worried for your own safety? There have been a lot of threats that have been going around from some of these very people who were pardoned.
There are a lot of threats. There are people right now who feel very emboldened, people who were violent criminals who myself and my colleagues prosecuted, who are now told that what they did was not only right, but okay, and it's being condoned by the President of the United States. So I hope that nothing happens. And And just to be clear, when the president says things like January 6th is a national injustice, and he calls these people political prisoners, that is condoning what they did.
Look, this was adjudicated by the American people in November.
Scott Jennings is once again absolutely right there. Let's go back to the beginning clip, though. The woman, she's not 100% wrong when she states that a significant number of undocumented immigrants are employed in the agricultural sector. I can't even talk today. But according to data from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, an estimated, somewhere around about 50%, a little less, farm workers in the United States are unauthorized immigrants. This is a well-documented reality, and while their labor is integral to the agricultural industry, it raises important questions about enforcement and accountability. One of the fundamental reasons this issue persists is that businesses, particularly in industries relying on low-wage labor, continue to hire these illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, whatever you want to call them, and employers benefit from paying these individuals below market wages, often avoiding taxes and workplace regulations in the process. And to address this, business owners who hire undocumented workers should face substantial penalties, perhaps fines of, $20,000 to $50,000 per illegal hire as a deterrent. That is something that should happen. And to be honest with you, if there's any citizen out there that are hiring these people to come do work on your yard, do work inside your home, any of those types of things, they should be hit with fines and things of that nature as well. If they enforce strict policies, if they were implemented, the economic incentive for illegal immigration would decrease, as fewer job opportunities would exist for those without proper documentation. However, the argument that undocumented immigrants are taking jobs that Americans don't want is a little misleading, in my opinion. The reality is this. There are too many of these positions, such as roofing, landscaping, construction. These are jobs that historically American workers have held and still seek. There's a lot of people starting small businesses or that would like to start small businesses in these industries, but they're being priced out because a lot of these companies, they're hiring, illegal immigrants to do the work, which lowers the wages. And, the people, they would like to receive a fair wage for the work. A 2017 study by the Center of Immigration Studies, CIS, found that in construction alone, native-born Americans still comprise of 65% of the workforce. The same holds true for the other industries. And contradicting that claim that Americans are unwilling to do these jobs, it definitely contradicts that. The real issue is that illegal labor creates downward pressure on wages, allowing employers to exploit cheap workforces rather than pay competitive wages that would attract American workers. That's the big deal. And beyond labor market concerns, illegal immigration is closely tied to broader societal issues, including crime, homelessness, and drug trafficking. The DEA reports that 90% of the fentanyl entering the United States right now is trafficked across the southern border, fueling a devastating opioid crisis. Additionally, an increasing number of homeless encampments in major cities contain recent migrants who lack the means to sustain themselves. Many do not speak English, making it even more challenging to integrate into the workforce legally, further exacerbating poverty and the criminal activity in the country. And ultimately, this is not just a policy issue. It's an economic and security concern. And if the demand for illegal labor is reduced through stricter employer penalties and wage enforcement, the incentive for crossing the border illegally would significantly diminish, leading to a more controlled and lawful immigration process. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Turn those notifications on so you never miss an upload. I appreciate everybody that rocks with me, everybody that supports the channel. I appreciate everybody that watches every video, watches them all the way through, comment, likes. If you'd like to go the extra mile, consider joining the ARP family or buy your man a coffee, link in the description box below. Everybody that joins the membership inside of Buy Me a Coffee, you'll get access to the Slack channel. You'll get a chance to chop it up with me and others that are joining the ARP family. I appreciate everybody that has joined, and I appreciate the support. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. We'll catch up with you all next time. Peace.
Vibes so